things. One, what your job is in terms of watching the racers ski the course and noting if they make mistakes. And two, safety stuff, because those are our two jobs: keeping people safe and making sure skiers are skiing the course correctly, and if they're not, writing down what they did wrong. So everybody's familiar with these, but I'm going to show them to you anyway. A little diagram of the course. So this is kind of your standard course, and today's a GS, so this is kind of how the course is generally going to look. There's not going to be too many sort of strange gates. I'll show you some variations over here on the other board. But essentially, and today, this is sort of typical that you have alternating red, blue, red, and the skiers are skiing around the outside of those gates. For a GS course, it's a pair of poles with a flag in the middle. For a slalom, it's just a single pole. Today, it sounds like if we race, it's likely to be different. Instead of alternating red, blue, red, they're going to set two courses, a red course and a blue course. They'll either run the girls on one and the boys on the other, or they'll use one for the first set of runs and the other for the second set. So that's kind of a different thing today. So that's kind of your typical course. There should be a little peg right here, and the first set of gates is always two where they go between them. Some kind of unusual sets of gates for slalom. The only one of these we might see today, because they do occasionally have them on a GS course, is a delay. So a delay is basically two gates, same color, placed kind of diagonally across the hill. And the racer is going between those two gates, okay, and then around the outside of the next gate. What we won't see today, but what we do see in a slalom course, are sometimes pairs of gates of the same color that are essentially kind of parallel to the fall line. They're just going right down the hill. When there's two sets of these, and each of these pairs is a single gate. So this would be, gate number 4, gate number 5. If there was a third set of reds, gate number 6. When there's two together, two pairs together, that's called a hairpin. When there's three together, that's called a flush. In those cases, the racer is similar to the delay. They're going in between the two gates. And again, that counts as one gate. They go in between these, they go in between the next ones. Now, theoretically, it would be possible, and actually not a fault, to go the wrong way through these gates and these gates. But they would still need to get around the next gate on the proper side. So it's kind of rare that somebody could actually manage to do that and not screw up the next gates. Like, I've never seen it happen, that somebody made it, like, for some reason came through these the wrong way, and then they made it around the next one. All right, that's just real unlikely. But it is okay for them that they have to go through these. They don't have to go through them in one direction or the other. Okay? So, again, unlikely to happen, but can happen. Most often, if they mess up a pair like this, they're probably going to mess up the next one. They're going to go around the wrong side of the next one just because of the line of the course. So that's what they're trying to do, generally. We use this one to talk about mistakes. So there's 5 different things a racer can do wrong. First of all, they can miss a gate. Missing a gate means you go down the wrong side of the gate. Okay, so if they pass this gate on this side, they've missed that gate, they can correct that. If it's a slalom course, if it's a GS course, maybe not. I'll talk about that in a second. If it's a slalom course, though, they can, if they recognize their mistake, they can come back up and hike around here. They could actually, if they came down here, they could come back and hike around this way. They can hike around either way, but they got to get all the way around that gate, all the way around that pole. So they can correct that. Straddle is the other thing they can do. One ski on either side of the gate. They can correct that as well. If they straddle that gate, get past there, again, recognize their mistake. I'll talk about helping racers in a little bit. They have to recognize they've done something wrong, essentially, to be able to fix something. So if they straddle it, same thing. They can come back up and go around either way. They can correct that. And you don't write anything down for that on your sheets. I'll talk about sheets in a minute, but you do not note something if they were able to correct it. third thing that can go wrong is they can come out of a ski. So that's called a binding release. On a slalom course, pretty much always, they can lose one ski and they're not disqualified. But if they lose a second ski, either at the same time as the first one, they blow out of both skis, or later in the course, they lose another ski, then they're done. They're disqualified. So we have to write down binding release when we're noting mistakes, even if that's not disqualifying them. Okay? If they lose a ski, basically their boots and the tips of both skis have to pass this pole or go around the proper side of this pole. So if they lose the ski here, but they and that ski both make it past that gate, they don't have to hike back around there. They can just get that ski back on and go. So they don't have to put the ski back on and go back, because as long as that ski came by on the proper side of that gate, okay? So you just put it on and go. Typically in a slalom, in a GS course, and I'll just confirm this today, sometimes it varies, but typically in a GS course, if they miss a gate, straddle a gate, lose a ski, and they get really past this gate at all to the point where they're going to have to hike back to get around it, we tell them they're done. Because we're trying to run the GS course fairly quickly, and we don't have time for them to hike that. They're also releasing the skiers pretty regularly. This course is much faster for the GS course. It's more likely somebody's going to get overtaken. So typically on a GS course, there's no hiking. Definitely, like when we ran Kelsey's race, there was no hiking on that race at all. And that's likely to be the case today, but I will confirm that with the coaches or other race officials, I'll let you know. So, there's two other things that can go wrong, or they can be grounds for disqualification. One is being overtaken. So, this doesn't happen a ton, but like the last race up here, it happened to probably 3 or 4 racers, where the one racer, typically it happens because somebody has missed a gate or lost a ski, and they're trying to correct that, and they've already released the next racer, and this first racer just doesn't have time. They're still out on the course, and the next racer comes down, that racer passes them. And so the first racer who was overtaken, they are disqualified. That's a DQ. The second racer, they are not disqualified for overtaking the racer below them, but if they are interfered with, then they can be granted a provisional rerun of that race. If you are there on the course watching, you see somebody either get overtaken or you are certain they are going to be overtaken. If you are certain that racer is going to be overtaken, tell them to get off the course so that maybe they won't interfere with the racer that's about to overtake them, 1. And 2, just so that we avoid collisions. We avoid something bad happening. If this racer number 2 was clearly interfered with, you want to tell that racer, stop racing the course, ski off to the side, go down to the bottom, and tell the race official that you want to rerun because you were interfered with, you overtook another racer and were interfered with. Now, other things can happen to interfere with people too, like somebody's helmet can go sliding across the course. That happened, I think, during Kelsey's race at one point. Or some errant snowboarder can ski across the course, or skier can ski across the course. They come out of the trees and ski across the course, and we didn't catch them quick enough, and so they interfered with that person. So any of those things that interfere with somebody, that racer that got interfered with can get a rerun. Again, if you're sure they were interfered with, that they sort of, especially if they stop or they have to slow way down, tell them, hey, you get a rerun, go off the course, go tell the finish ref that you want a rerun, okay? The last grounds for disqualification, my personal favorite is unsportsmanlike conduct. So, unsportsmanlike conduct, a good example is somebody blows out of both skis and they are super pissed off, they pick up one of those skis, they hurl it to the ground, and a string of F-bombs flies forth from their mouth. That would definitely be unsportsmanlike conduct. Or, that again, they come out of a ski, you're giving them direction, they're like, F you, or whatever. I mean, any of that. Any just egregious behavior, profanity, is unsportsmanlike conduct, and you should note that on your card for that racer. Okay? I like to give another example of something that's like kind of gearing towards them, but maybe not quite. So my older daughter, she had this little, like, I'll call it a motivational habit, where when she was racing the course, she used swear words as like a little rhythmic motivation, self-motivation. So she'd be kind of going down there, but not real loud, just kind of like saying it. I remember one of the other parents was like, your daughter swears like a sailor. And so I didn't nobody ever, I don't think, DQ'd her for that. Because she wasn't like angry at anybody. She was just kind of, and she kept it reasonably low. Kind of use your judgment. I mean, I think you'll know it when you see it with unsportsmanlike conduct. But that is a disqualifying offense, unsportsmanlike conduct. So those are the things that they can do wrong. And now I'll talk about kind of how we note those things on our cards. Any questions before I grab one of those? Okay. So you will have these cards today. If we race, it's likely to be a single run, is my guess. If it's if we end up doing 2 runs, then you'll use 1 card for each run. Okay? So I'm gonna find one of these. There we go. A little sample. So you'll have 2 of these in your plastic bag. You'll have a clipboard. You'll have a couple pencils. Some hand warmers. You use these to record any mistakes anybody makes. Again, if they correct the mistake, don't put anything down. The one sort of caveat to that I would say is if somebody gets interfered with, now they haven't been disqualified, but you want to note that in some fashion, and I'll talk about that a little more in a sec. Just to note that so that if there's any question at the end of the race, we've got some documentation of that. So on this card at the top is just some basic information about the race. You're going to put your name, you're going to note the gates that you are watching, the gate numbers for those gates. You're going to note whether or not it's a slalom or a GS course. You're going to note whether or not it's the first or second run if there are 2 runs. Generally, again, we would use one of these for each run, girls and boys on the same sheet. I usually put like girls on one side, boys on the other side when I'm doing this. You also want to put your name and your cell phone number. Chances are I will not have to call you. I will do everything I can to avoid calling you afterwards. But sometimes there are questions about things we wrote down. Sometimes there are protests from coaches or racers. And if that happens, you need to be available to answer questions. Sometimes if there's a protest, there's like a little jury process that occurs. And ideally, the gatekeeper should be there. Now, I will talk to you if you have things on your sheet to make sure I understand what happened so that I can represent you. And that's kind of what I did at the last race. We were over on Gemini. I didn't want people to have to stick around there forever, and so I just kind of took care of it. But that's why you put your cell phone down here. And then, as people make mistakes that they did not or cannot correct, or the binding release, you note that too, you're going to put that on the front of the sheet. The first little column is the bib number, and the second column you're going to write a code for the mistake. The codes are all across the top here. Misgate is MG, straddle is S, binding release is BR, overtaken is OB, and unsportsmanlike conduct is UC. So you'll write the bib number, the fault, and the place where it occurred. Also, the other thing you can write down here, it's like not necessary, but if you know somebody, let's say they were overtaken, or some other thing happened, and they just, you can tell they didn't continue down the course, they just skied off to the side. You can write DNF, did not finish, because you know they didn't go through the finish line. And that just like helps me at the end when I'm like checking in with the finish rep about that. So that's not absolutely necessary, but you can do that. On the other side of this are 4 little boxes, and you use these boxes to draw diagrams of the gates that you are watching, and then to indicate both the correct path through the gates and whatever mistakes people made. Let's see, I might have one more of these to use. This is an even better one. Okay, so what you want to do up there, once I position you at your gates, you're going to draw diagrams in all 4 of these little boxes. The diagrams in the boxes that you draw at the start are just the symbols for the gates and the numbers for the gates. Okay, so this person was watching gates 7, 8, 9, and 10. The little round circle is used for a red gate, the X is for a blue gate. So you'll draw the gate and the number next to the gate, and you'll draw that in all 4 of these little boxes. In this top left box, you'll draw a line that shows the correct path that all racers should be taking through those gates that you're watching. In the other little boxes, if somebody makes a mistake, you're going to draw the mistake they made. So in this case, we drew a line that showed that this person missed a gate because they went down the wrong side of that gate. Typically in these races, if somebody makes a mistake, other people will make the same mistake. You know, that's just kind of the nature of the course generally. It's set kind of weird often, or not often, but sometimes. And so, or like people will see other people's tracks and they'll just keep making the same mistake. You don't have to use another box if people are making the same mistake, but what you have to do is draw again some kind of line, arrow, diagram to show what they did wrong. And then you're going to write the bib number of the person who made the mistake and the kind of mistake they made. So missed gate, this was number 25 missed a gate, number 34 missed a gate. So same thing. If somebody makes another kind of mistake, use another box to show that other mistake. Straddle, or they miss a different gate, or they get overtaken, or whatever. If somebody does get overtaken, you want to kind of draw, you want to note where the racer was overtaken and who that was, and then also note who overtook them. Again, that'll just help us at the end of the run or the end of the day to know what happened if there's any question about that. And I wasn't real good about explaining that last time, so I'm doing better today. So those are all the things you note on there. Again, if they fix a misgate, if they fix a straddle, you don't write anything. Binding release, you do write it because they might come out of another ski down the hill. And again, today, if binding release means they're done, then you definitely write it down. But you do anyway. So that's kind of how you record stuff on here. Any questions about that?
So probably no hiking today?
Probably no hiking today. I will check with the course official. Yeah, they should. The coaches should tell them. I mean, all of these things I'm describing, the kids should know. But they don't always know, right? And also, if they eat at a moment, man, the brains just like turn to jelly and they go blank and they forget. So that's it on kind of recording stuff. I'm going to talk about a little bit more about safety and also helping them. What you can't do, are supposed to do, aren't supposed to do. So starting off with kind of the issue of can you help them? You are not supposed to give a racer aid, even directions, unless they ask you for help. Now, I interpret asking for help pretty liberally, like if I'm a gatekeeper and the racer thinks they did something wrong, they look at me, big open mouth, you know, like even if they don't say anything, but clearly they are very confused and they think they did something wrong, they need some help. I interpret that as asking for help. And if they verbally say, what do I do? Clearly asking for help, right? So what you can tell them is basically to hike, or the word you use that you should use is back. So if they've missed a gate or straddled a gate, and they need to go back around the gate, then you tell them, oh, I gotta do one more thing on this in a sec, but you tell them back. If they missed a couple and like they're past the blue, but they also missed the red, you tell them back red, so either back blue or back red, back, 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 back. Once they've gone around the gate, then you tell them go. So it's back, and then it's go, and it's never go back, because that's super confusing. So back or go, back red, back blue, go. Now, and also, if they think they might have made a mistake, you don't think they made a mistake, you're not writing anything down, and they look at you for help, just say go. Say you're okay, or just go. One little quick caveat to what I said about kind of fixing a misgate or a straddle. On a GS course, you don't technically have to kind of go all the way around. What you have to do is break this plane. So if you imagine there's kind of this imaginary plane or wall between these two gates, they have to, and they miss this gate, they have to break the plane. So they still pretty much have to go around, but like, you know, they really just have to technically break the plane with the tips in their boots, right? So they could theoretically kind of like do this and get their boots past and then get back up and go down. I don't know why they would ever do that, but they could do that. If they straddled and got down here, they could just kind of back it up so that their tips and boots are back, and then they can keep going this way. They don't have to turn around. So they just need to break that plane with their boots and their tips, okay? So that's just a little modification. On the slalom course, they have to go around. So
Today,
that's kind of
today we've got a slalom course.
Today is a GS. Yeah. The other thing I would say about helping is often there will be well-intentioned parents out there standing near you and helping. And sometimes their help is not really helpful because they're telling these kids something that you are not telling them or that you wouldn't tell them. And so if people are doing that and you can politely say, hey, it's awesome that you're trying to help your kids or help the other racers, but it's important that the racers only take direction from course officials. So please don't give advice to the racers about correcting mistakes, because if you tell them to do something or not to do something, like I've heard people say, oh, just go, when in fact the kid missed a gate. That's not good. They're going to get beat. So, you know, do what you can on that. The other kind of help that you can provide, two other kinds of help. One, if a racer's down, and again, they're going to get overtaken, you can help them get off the course. If they've lost both skis, or if today it's like no hiking, their skis down, and you can help them get off the course. Basically, if they're not going to be able to finish that run, then you can help them get off the course. And it's not a bad idea to do that to prevent somebody running into them coming down behind them. If anything's out on the course, get that off the course. Often what happens too is a gate will come out. Some of these racers are super aggressive. They'll hit that gate hard enough, it'll pop the gate out of the snow. If you are able to like scoot over there and just get it back in a little bit, tamp it down, that's great. Then we'll try to get a course maintenance worker down there to help fix it. But if you can do that, that's super helpful. And so I've talked actually a lot about sort of safety stuff, and it's really about like minimizing the opportunity for racers to run into each other or to run into anybody or anything else. So that's really a lot of what you're doing in terms of keeping them safe. So I talked about kind of getting kids off the course if that's happening. Definitely if you see somebody coming towards the course that shouldn't be there, again, somebody's like cutting across the course that shouldn't be, tell them to stop, wait. If they absolutely have to do that, that's okay, but make sure that a racer has just gone by, they got plenty of time to get across the course. If there's a course worker or anybody on the course, and there's a racer approaching, you want to yell at them, course, so that they get off the course. And in fact, what we've been doing this season and last season is everybody, all the gatekeepers, I'm asking them to yell course when each racer is coming down the hill. So when the racer's behind you, like maybe 2-3 gates back, just yell down the hill, every racer, course, and we should hear like course, course, course down the hill. And that way anybody knows there's a racer on the course. The people down the hill, because sometimes you're up above like a little knoll and the next gatekeeper really doesn't have good vision until the kid comes right past that knoll. Or, you know, again, there's a course worker out there. It's good practice. The folks from YSRA asked me to do that during state championships last year, and so I've been doing it since then. So you want to do that. If somebody gets hurt, obviously you can help them. You know, I help them to the extent you can help them without, you know, it making anything worse. And if you need help with anything, just try to find a race official and yell at them that, hey, we need help. I will be, again, assuming we're racing today, I will be coming down the course periodically and checking in with you. And if you're seeing any situations that you think somebody needs to deal with, like one set of gates is just getting super ruddy and you think it needs some help, then I can talk to the maintenance folks. So that's, I think, kind of in on safety. Again, it's just kind of trying to avoid collisions and other bad things from happening.
The command we were using when an overtake was imminent was clear the course, call them your number.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine too. Clear the course. Yeah, that works. I think that's kind of it on that. So then there's some logistical things that I always have to talk about. Again, God willing, you'll have a bucket, you'll have a bag with hand warmers, clipboard, pencils, forms in it. We'll all, once we know what time the race is starting, we'll identify what time and where we're going to all meet up. So we'll have you meet there, and then I'll take you down and set you in position on the course. Typically on a GS course, there's anywhere from 20 to 30 gates, and we're all watching like 2 to 3 gates, max 4 on a GS course usually, some often 2. And once I have you there and in position, you need to stay there until the end of the run, with one exception. If you don't have anything on your card and the run's over, and you know what time you need to be back there, or it's the last run of the day, you can take off. But if you have anything on your card, you need to wait there for me to come down and get your card and have you explain to me what happened, so that again I can communicate that later if I have to. And typically at some point before the first run is over, for instance, I will know when the second run is going to start and what the course folks are going to have to do. Are they going to have to reset the course completely or just touch it up? And I'll tell you what time you need to be back. I always say this real firmly, super important to be back when I say, because if you're not, and everybody's not in place, and you can't start for the next race, or next run, then that's just 150 people who are waiting. We don't want them waiting for you. And sometimes I can sort of fill in, but that means I'm not able to talk to my other gatekeepers and communicate, so that's not ideal either. So just be good, be there when I tell you to be there. At the end of the day, when you're done, once I've gotten your card, or if you didn't have anything on your card, just come back here, take these buckets, and put them near the registration table. Just kind of in a corner near the registration table. Please get rid of your garbage from your lunch and all that stuff. Try to put things back kind of the way they were when you picked up your bucket. The things in the plastic bag that should be in there, etc. And then typically you get a pass or a voucher for a pass to come back another day. So make sure you get that, especially if you don't have a season pass. I think that's it. People have heard me do this before. This is all of you. What have I missed? What did I forget? All right. I got actually a complete spiel for the video. All right, so we'll see what happens today.